Thank you so much for joining us here at CAIS20. Great to see you again. Just tell me what you think about this environment we're heading into in the 2020s. It's a feisty one geopolitically and economically, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. In my organization, what we do is a poll of all the key institutional investors around the world. We do the poll in January every year in order to find out what is it that is really keeping investors awake at night. And at the moment, there are so many things that are keeping investors awake at night. There are some which are sort of short-term issues like trade wars, for example, and elections, but there are a lot of longer-term issues on the horizon which are really worrying investors. And the biggest worry is climate change. You know, we've seen some horrific events in California last year and in Australia this year, and indeed there have been so many other events like that around the world. And investors are beginning to think, where is all this leading to? And where should I really be putting my money?
Do you think they're thinking that in terms of their investment portfolios, or do you think they're thinking that in terms of what they should be doing for the better good?
Well, I think it's a question of whether you ask that question publicly or privately. If you ask the question publicly, they would say, okay, we want to invest in climate change, for example, because we're aiming for a double bottom line. We want to get decent returns, alpha-type returns, and we also really want to generate some societal benefits. That would be the public stance. In private, basically, what they're saying is that, the societal aspect is important, but basically we want to future-proof our portfolio. And as a part of future-proofing the portfolio, if that means that, we invest in climate change, then we will do it. So if you really look at some of the public statements made by biggest pension plans, like, Canada Pension Plan in Canada, Alecta in Sweden, what you find is, they would say publicly that, it's double bottom line, but privately it is, I want to future-proof my portfolio. And as a result of that, if there are some spin-off benefits, that would be even better.
So does it matter what the motives are if the end result is what we all hope, which is an improvement to environment and addressing those issues?
I think if the end results deliver those two outcomes, then it doesn't really matter. But it does matter from the point of influencing the other stakeholders in the climate change business. For example, investors are not the only one, as you know. There is governments, then there are consumers, then there are regulators. And these other stakeholders also want to know that investors are doing their bit. And they really want to know that investors are serious about it.
And do you think in an environment where perhaps globally there's a lot of disconnect, they're talking about US-China decoupling and a less globalized view, that actually there's a void where these businesses need to step up because they're going to be the ones that are able to make that change as opposed to governments? Yeah,
I think that's a very, very good question indeed. And it's something that I have really grappled with since 1996 when I first wrote about the stakeholder model of capitalism. What we found was that, with the collapse of the Berlin Wall, today's capitalism lost its social expression because in the past, capitalism was about not being communist and also, caring for the citizens and so on. And then with the collapse of the Berlin Wall, what we find was that reference point was gone. So all the research we were doing was really about that stakeholder model, where you have leaders who can reconcile the diverse aspirations of the workforce and the shareholders and marketplace and the wider society. And that issue has really come to the fore, that today's business leaders, more than ever, they are really expected to step up to the plate. And it's not a matter of surprise that the American Business Association issued that statement last August. To me, it was a landmark statement. Until recently, they had always sort of believed about the supremacy of shareholders. Publicly, they have ditched that old orthodoxy. And they basically sort of said, we've got to embrace this more stakeholder-oriented model. So we're heading in that direction. My big worry is that, it's matching words with deeds. Leaders, I've written a lot about leadership. I've written about specific leaders and so on. And, they feel very constrained when they go back to their workplace. On the conference circuits, you hear everything wonderful. I read a number of blog posts from Davos. They impressed me and they depressed me. They impressed me because many leaders were sort of very open about what really needs to happen. What depressed me was that they said the same thing last year and the year before and the year before. And so
Paul Polman's described it as the say-do gap.
Yeah, it is. And it's a huge gap. It is absolutely huge, the gap between rhetoric and reality. And for example, if you take ESG, it's a great idea. You know, we've done 4 reports on ESG, but we are at the beginning of the beginning, no matter what people say, because there are so many formidable challenges. For example, you know, we need a robust template to take us into this journey. It is a journey into the unknown. We've never been there before. So we need a roadmap. Second, we need consistent definitions about what G means or what E means. We don't have that. Thirdly, we need robust data as well in order to base our decisions. We don't have that. Yeah? So that the key navigation tools that you will need to embark on a journey of unknown, those tools are still at a nascent phase.
Well, let's hope that a conference like CAIS starts to bring about those tools and bring them to fruition.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. The last 4 surveys that we did on ESG, for example, you know, people's thinking is changing. The language is changing. And in the latest survey that we did with KPMG, which was published at this conference, what we found was that, you know, there were some asset managers who were really stepping up to the plate, and some institutional investors as well. I would say institutional investors are in the driving seat at the moment. And these are investors who actually manage their own money. They don't use external managers, because they have really come to realize that, you know, unless they do something, they're not going to be able to meet their contractual liability to their members. So they're really stepping up to the plate. And so, you know, I see some progress, but what depresses me is its pace. I just wish it was faster.
Thanks so much for joining us. Great to talk to you as always.
Thank you.